Ava leaned back in her chair. So what happens now? Ethan's eyes moved from the original will to the ledger, then finally to his phone. We contacted journalists, he said. Someone who isn't tied to the Blakes. And after that, he looked toward the window, where the city lights flickered like distant stars. After that, he replied quietly, we blow this wide open with a story. Later, Ethan sat alone in his office as midnight settled over the skyline. The buildings below shimmered like silent witnesses, every lit window watching. A world that never truly slept. His phone rested on the desk, a number already entered, his finger hovering over the call button. He wasn't calling a lawyer. He wasn't calling anyone from the board. He was calling her, the only person in Atlanta who still knew how to chase. The truth with nothing but persistence and a recorder. Lena Kavanaugh, he whispered. Pulitzer nominated. Disgraced. Then proven right. She was known for exposing corruption in the mayor's office a decade earlier, and for paying a heavy price for it. Since then, she hadn't worked for any major media outlet. Instead, she wrote long investigative pieces for an independent online journal called The Lantern, followed by skeptics, traditionalists, and readers who still valued deep reporting over fast headlines. Ethan press call. The phone rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, low, sharp, and tired. This better be life or death. It might be, Ethan said. It's Ethan Blake. Silence. Well, she finally replied, that's not a name I expected tonight. You got 30 seconds before I hang up. My mother is alive. Dead quiet. You buried her 15 years ago, Lena said carefully. I buried a closed casket, Ethan replied. We were lied to. Someone in my family took her, and I have proof. Lena didn't respond at first. Then, slowly, and you're calling me because? Because you don't owe my family anything, Ethan said, and because you won't back down when the pressure starts. Another stretch of silence, then a quiet breath. Meet me tomorrow, she said. 8 a.m. southbound coffee. Back patio. No lawyer. No security. If I see a briefcase or a thug, I walk. I'll be there, Ethan said. Southbound coffee sat near the edge of Grant Park, hidden among overgrown trees and ivy-covered brick walls. It wasn't the kind of place billionaires chose for secret meetings, which made it perfect. Ethan arrived 5 minutes early. Lena was already there on the back patio, wearing dark sunglasses and sipping black coffee. Her long gray coat moved in the wind, like a banner that had seen too many battles. She didn't stand when he approached. She only tilted her head slightly. You look thinner in real life, and you sound taller in print. She smiled slightly. Sit. He did. For the next 10 minutes, he told her everything. The forged will, the missing years, his mother's return, Richard's hidden transactions, and Eva's role in uncovering it all. He slid copies of journal entries and ledgers across the table, along with the notarized will and the names of the shell companies. Lena barely reacted when he finished. She leaned back and folded her arms. Well, she said at last, either you're telling the truth, or you've written the greatest revenge fantasy since Greek tragedy. I have more, Ethan said. Audio from my mother. A recorded statement. We're verifying the financials right now. Why now, she asked. Why bring this to me instead of quietly taking it to court? Let the law handle it. Because I don't trust the law, he replied. Not when Richard has bought half the judges and funded the campaigns of the rest. Lena nodded slowly. That's fair. He hesitated, then added, and if something happens to me, Eva, or my mother, I want the truth out already. I want you to publish everything. She studied him over the rim of her coffee cup. You're not afraid anymore? No, he said. I'm angry. A pause. Then you've come to the right woman. She gathered the documents into her satchel. I'll start cross-referencing within the hour. But I need access, emails, board memos, anything that can't be brushed off with a PR stunt. You'll have it, Ethan said. I'll send the rest today. She stood and pushed in her chair. And Ethan, don't think this ends with a headline. Once this is out, you won't be able to put it back in the box. I don't want it in a box, he said. I want it in flames. Later that afternoon, Eva sat beside Mama Ruth, in the hospital room, gently braiding her hair. The old woman's strength was returning little by little. She was eating more, speaking stronger, remembering clearer. I heard him on the phone, Mama Ruth said suddenly. Eva paused. Richard? She nodded. The day before they took me, he was angry, talking to someone named Gaines. Or maybe Granger. Eva frowned. Do you remember what he said? He said, if she opens her mouth, we lose the whole damn estate. She looked up at Eva. That's when I knew I had to act. I thought I had time. I didn't. Eva squeezed her hand. You made it back. That's what matters. Tears filled the old woman's eyes. You believed me when no one else did. And you're the reason he believes now, too, Eva said. That night, back in Ethan's home office, the first draft of Lena's expose appeared in his inbox. He opened it with shaking hands. The Billionaire's Heir, a legacy of lies buried alive. The subheadline read, How Power, Greed, and Silence Nearly Erased a Woman from History. Until her son finally listened. He read the opening paragraphs. Lena's voice was sharp and relentless. She named Richard directly, laid out the evidence, described Ava's role, recounted Ruth's captivity with chilling detail. And it was only part one. Eva stepped up behind him, reading over his shoulder. She doesn't pull punches, Eva said. She throws them, Ethan replied. He closed the laptop slowly. We release it in 48 hours. That gives us time to finalize the rest of the files. And after that? Eva asked. He looked at her, his expression steady and focused. After that, he said, Richard Blake answers to the world. Richard Blake was not a man easily rattled. In his 62 years, he had survived market crashes, lawsuits, boardroom revolts, and even the death of his own brother, with little more than a tightened jaw and another cube of ice in his scotch. But tonight felt different. Standing in his private penthouse study, the city spread out beneath him. He sensed a shift. The calls had been coming all evening. Not frantic calls, worse. The quiet kind, the warning kind. His longtime assistant had canceled tomorrow's lunch. The board chair had sent a single message. We should talk. And worst of all, he'd heard Lena Kavanaugh had been seen in Grant Park. Again, Richard swore under his breath. He opened the desk drawer and pulled out a burner phone, kept for emergencies only. Very few people knew the number. He dialed, waited, then spoke. I told you to monitor Ethan, he said coldly, not sit on your hands. We are watching him, the voice replied. But he's careful. No digital leaks. No paper trails. And now he's working with Kavanaugh. She's a wild card, the voice added. Richard's tone hardened. She's a grenade. If she publishes anything, even hints at my involvement, she won't get far. We have people ready. Not enough, Richard snapped. Find someone on the inside. Someone close. A staffer. A driver. I don't care. If Ethan, that woman, or the maid talk before I control the narrative, everything we built collapses. A pause. Understood. The call ended. Richard stared out through the floor-to-ceiling window. His reflection stared back, warped by the glass. He lifted his glass slightly. To survival, he murmured and drank. The next morning, Ava headed to the mailroom in Ethan's building, though she had insisted she was fine staying in the guest house behind the estate. She arrived early to collect several confidential envelopes. Lena had requested handwritten letters, medical reports, and the original time-stamped photo of Ruth's bracelet before it had been cleaned. Ava didn't expect the elevator to stop on the 17th floor. When the doors opened, a tall woman in a maintenance uniform stepped inside, too well-groomed to be just another cleaner. Her badge read, Temp Staffing Solutions. Ava offered a polite nod. Good morning. The woman returned it, calm and unreadable. As the elevator resumed, Ava noticed the woman's eyes flick toward the envelopes in her hands. specifically the name L. Kavanaugh printed in block letters. The elevator suddenly jolted. The woman pressed emergency stop. Ava froze. "What are you doing?" The woman smiled faintly. "Just a quick word." She stepped closer, her voice low. "Miss Kavanaugh is playing with matches. You might want to think twice before delivering gasoline." Ava tightened her grip on the envelopes. "Who are you?" The woman tilted her head. "Someone who knows how stories end, especially the ones told too loudly." The emergency light flashed. The elevator buzzed. Ava straightened, unshaken. "If this is meant to scare me," she said, "you'll have to try harder." The woman leaned in closer. "Careful, Ms. Jones. There's always a price for playing the hero." The elevator resumed its descent. The woman stepped out on the next floor without another word. Only then did Ava exhale. As soon as the doors closed, she called Ethan. He listened in silence as Ava described the encounter, standing in the hallway outside Mama Ruth's room, one hand gripping the phone, the other clenched into a fist. "They've started," he said quietly. "They're trying to intimidate us." "Won't work," Ava replied, "but it means we're close." He nodded. "Then it's time to accelerate." That afternoon, Lena published part 1. It went live on the Lantern at exactly 2 p.m. By 2:07, the site was crashing. By 2:15, the phrase "Ruth Blake is alive" was trending on social media. By 2:30, Richard Blake's personal PR firm released a rush statement. Mr. Richard Blake has no knowledge of the allegations presented and is deeply troubled by the manipulation of facts. The Blake family will respond formally through legal channels. Ethan read it and smiled coldly. "They're scrambling," he said. Eva sat across from him, laptop open, dozens of tabs flashing with breaking news alerts. "They're also watching us," she said. That woman in the elevator wasn't bluffing. "Then let's give them something else to watch." Ethan opened a folder on his desktop, labeled Phase 2. Inside were video files. One showed Ruth, recorded just 2 days earlier, softly describing the threat she received from Richard's assistant before she disappeared. Another showed Ethan reading the original will aloud, time-stamped and notarized. The third video was different. It showed Ava, bruised but composed, her voice steady as she described the night Ethan struck her and how she stayed afterward because she believed the truth mattered. "This goes public next," Ethan said. "They won't expect us to expose our own scars." Ava didn't look away. "Good. Let us bleed first." That evening, Richard sat alone again, this time in an underground office belonging to a private security firm. On the screens before him, news anchors debated, panels argued, and social feeds exploded. One phrase appeared again and again: "Justice doesn't care who wears a suit." Richard shut the screens off and turned to his assistant. "Find where she's being kept." "Ruth?" the assistant asked. "Yes, and find a way to move her quietly." "You want her gone?" "I want her unreachable." The assistant hesitated. "That won't be easy." Richard's eyes hardened. "Neither is breathing with broken ribs." "Make it happen." At the hospital, Ethan and Ava arrived for their nightly visit. Ruth's room was empty. No nurses, no patient, only an unplugged monitor and a cold bed. Ethan turned to the hallway, his voice raw. "Where is she?" Ava rushed to the nurse's station. "Where's Ruth Blake?" "She was in room 417. The nurse blinked. "She was discharged." "What?" Ava said. "By who?" "Her son." Ethan froze. "I am her son." The nurse went pale. "They got to her," Ava whispered. Ethan turned to her, jaw clenched. "We're out of time." The sterile hallway suddenly felt suffocating. "Check the surveillance," Ethan said. "There has to be footage. Paperwork. Something." They rushed to the security office. Ethan slammed his hand on the desk. "I want video from room 417. Everything from the last 6 hours." The guard hesitated, then recognized him. "Yes, sir. Right away." The footage loaded. At first, everything looked normal. Ruth lay in bed, monitors beeping softly. At 1:43 p.m., A man in scrubs entered. Not rushed, not hesitant. He went straight to the 4 line and unplugged it. "Zoom in on his badge," Ethan said. The image sharpened. Dr. Lewis Carter, attending. Ava shook her head. "There's no doctor by that name assigned to her." They kept watching. The man gently placed Ruth into a wheelchair, covered her with a blanket, and wheeled her out. No struggle, no alarm, no fear, as if she trusted him. "Stop right there," Ethan ordered. "Reverse the zoom. Focus on the wheelchair." Ava squinted at the screen. "There's a sticker. Get me the name." Ethan said sharply. The guard wrote it down. "Safe Ride Health Logistics." Ava read aloud. "I've never heard of it." Ethan was already dialing. "Call Lena," he said. "Tell her everything. I'll track the transport company. We need the route, the GPS, whoever authorized that van." "If they move her off the books," Ava whispered. "She could be anywhere." Ethan nodded grimly. "But they made a mistake," he said. "They moved her. In daylight. Across town. Across the city." Lena Kavanaugh stared at the transcript. Eva had just emailed her. Her jaw tightened with every line. She was discharged by her son. He wasn't there. No digital record of the transport request. Lena stood and packed her bag. A recorder. A second phone. Her press badge. Pepper spray. And a flask of terrible bourbon. Her war kit. She called Ethan. Did she fight back? Lena asked. "No," Ethan replied quietly. "She probably thought he was someone she recognized. Someone we trusted back then." "They're moving fast," Lena said. "Your uncle's getting reckless." "I need your help," Ethan said. "If we go to the police now, Richard will bury this in red tape." "Then we don't go to the police," Lena replied. "We go louder." That night, Ava sat on the floor of Ethan's office, surrounded by printouts, transport logs, financial records, old employee photos. She was hunting for a face, a name, a weakness. Then she found it. "Ethan," she called. He was at the desk, phone pressed to his ear, issuing sharp orders to a private investigator. He turned. Ava held up a printed photograph from 5 years earlier. A charity gala in Savannah. Richard stood among donors, and beside him, half out of frame, was a man in a medical coat. Dr. Lewis Carter. Ava said. Ethan stepped closer. "That's the man from the footage?" "Not exactly," Ava replied. "Same name, different man." She held the hospital screenshot beside the gala photo. The ID was fake. Ethan realized they had used a real name, but placed someone else in the role. Eva opened an old article. "Carter died in a car accident in 2019. That man isn't him. He's just wearing the badge." "Then who is he?" Ethan asked. Eva opened another file. "Security firm profiles," she said slowly. "He works for Blackhaven Security. It's a private company Richard has used for years." She scrolled. "Most of their records are sealed, but the founder, Simon Voss, used to be Marine Intelligence. He owes Richard a lot." Ethan stared at the name. "Then that's who took her." At 2 a.m., Ethan and Ava drove along a winding rural road, guided by GPS pings left behind by the Safe Ride van. Their investigator had pulled the route from a highway camera near the hospital. The van had left the city, heading north into the foothills. "There are only a few places that far out," Ava said, studying the glowing map. "Old family cabins, remote warehouses." Ethan nodded. "He's hiding her where no one can hear her scream." "But she isn't the same woman anymore," Ava said calmly. "She survived 15 years in silence. She'll survive this too." Ethan glanced at her. "Only if we get there in time." Inside a cold concrete building, hidden in a forest clearing, Mama Ruth sat alone on a thin mattress. She was awake. She didn't ask where she was. She didn't panic. They had taken her before. But this time, she wasn't the same woman. She rubbed her wrist, feeling the faint ridges of the old scar. From the first time they locked her away. This time there were no chains, no shackles, only men outside the door, with guns and orders. She looked up at the surveillance camera in the corner and smiled faintly. They think I'm weak. Let them keep thinking it. She reached beneath the mattress and touched the metal fork. They had forgotten to remove from her food tray, not to escape, but to remind herself that she was still sharp, still alive, still dangerous. Back in Atlanta, Lena hit publish on part 2. The headline read, "The Second Disappearance of Ruth Blake." The subheading followed. First they buried her truth. Now they buried her again. Phones buzzed. Screens lit up. In Richard Blake's penthouse office, a glass shattered against the wall. The world was watching, and the clock was ticking. The road narrowed into a single-lane dirt path, lined with tall pines clawing at the moonlight. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, eyes locked on the blinking GPS dot. Ava sat beside him, flashlight in hand, scanning the forest like a co-pilot in hostile airspace. "We're close," she whispered. They hadn't spoken much during the last stretch. Ruth's abduction hung over them, like a storm that refused to break. Ethan's jaw was set. Ava had removed her earrings, tied her hair back. Neither said it, but both were ready for the worst. As the SUV rounded the final bend, the trees opened onto an old facility. Concrete walls, barbed wire fencing, a floodlight buzzing above a rusted security gate. It didn't look corporate. It didn't look official. It looked private, remote, untouchable. "There," Ava said. "That has to be it." Ethan cut the engine. They stepped out, the silence of the woods pressing in, like cotton in their ears. No dogs, no guards, only the hum of a generator and the buzz of the floodlight. They crouched near the fence. "I see 3 cameras," Ava murmured. "1 west corner, 2 at the entrance. No patrols. No vehicles," Ethan said. "That's wrong. They wouldn't leave her alone, unless they didn't expect anyone to find her." Ethan nodded. "Then let's make sure they regret that." From a hidden compartment in the trunk, he pulled out a compact drone. It rose smoothly, guided over the fence, and through a broken second-floor window. The monitor showed empty corridors, flickering lights, peeling paint, then movement. A faint shadow in a room on the ground floor. "There," Ava said. "Room C5. Ethan landed the drone and grabbed a handheld radio. "Lena, do you copy?" Static crackled. Then her voice came through, loud and clear. "I've got a police contact standing by, but we need something solid. No warrant, no backup." "We'll get it," Ethan said. A pause. "And Ethan," Lena added quietly, "be careful. This feels like a trap." Ethan looked at Ava. She gave a small nod. "Then let's walk in with our eyes open." Inside the building, Mama Ruth sat in the same bare room, silent except for the hum of a small heater and the dim light buzzing overhead. The fork was still hidden beneath the mattress. She had tested the door twice, locked, but she wasn't afraid. She knew someone was coming. That old instinct, sharpened by 15 years of silence, told her to stay calm, to be ready. Her eyes flicked to the air vent above. Dust shifted. She smiled faintly. "He's here." Ethan and Ava scaled the fence, landing softly on gravel, moving with practiced silence. They slipped past the cone of the floodlight and pressed against the side of the building. One window had been pried open recently, likely how Ruth had been brought inside. They climbed through one at a time. Inside, the air smelled of oil and mildew. Ethan whispered, "Camera loop is holding. We've got 15 minutes. Maybe less." They moved down the hallway, boots silent on cracked linoleum. Ava held the flashlight low. C1, C2, C3. A sudden creak froze them both. They pressed flat against the wall, holding their breath. Footsteps, slow, controlled, coming from the stairwell. Ava mouthed, "Guard." Ethan signaled, "Let him pass." The footsteps faded. They turned the corner. Room C5. Ethan placed his hand gently on the door handle. "Ruth," he whispered, just loud enough. "Mama." Inside, Ruth sat up, eyes wide. "Ethan," she croaked. He opened the door quickly. Ava rushed in, wrapping a coat around her shoulders. "We're getting you out," she said softly. "Can you walk?" Ruth nodded. "I've walked through hell, baby. This is just a hallway." They helped her to her feet. Then the hallway lights flickered and went out. The outside floodlights hummed louder. Voices followed. Male voices. Fast. Angry. "They're in the east wing." Ava's eyes met Ethan's. They knew. He nodded. "We're not running. We're recording." Ethan pulled a small body camera from his pocket, clipped it to his shirt, and pressed record. "Let's move." They advanced quickly, guiding Ruth down the corridor, toward the broken window. Ava scanned ahead. Clear. No flashlights. Then, "Stop." A voice barked behind them. They turned. Two men in black tactical gear, one holding a stun baton, the other reaching for a weapon. Ethan stepped forward. "Touch her," he said calmly, "and the whole world sees us in 5 minutes." He raised the camera. "We're live right now," Ethan said. "You touch a single hair on her head, and your faces go viral." The guards hesitated. Then one lowered his weapon. "Let them go," he muttered. The other tilted his head, listening to an earpiece. A long pause. Then both men turned and disappeared into the shadows. Ethan didn't wait. He lifted Ruth into his arms and ran with Ava toward the broken window. Moments later, they were outside, climbing the fence, their breath visible in the cold night air. Behind them, the compound fell silent again, but now it had been seen, recorded, and soon it would burn. Back in the SUV, Ruth sipped from a thermos Ava had packed. She was pale, but smiling. "You came for me." Ethan took her hand. "This time, no one is burying you again." Ava turned toward him. "Lena's waiting. She has media outlets on hold. All we need is your word." Ethan looked into the rearview mirror, at his mother, her scars, her strength, her eyes clearer than he had ever seen them. "Run it all," he said. "No more secrets." Ava nodded. From the back seat, Ruth Blake whispered, "Let them come. I'm ready." The sun had not yet risen when Lena Kavanaugh stepped onto the rooftop of her downtown office building. She held a cup of bitter coffee, her jacket zipped tight against the December cold, watching dawn begin to push against the Atlanta skyline. The files were ready. The article was written. The rescue footage had been uploaded to a secure drive. Now came the moment she had trained for her entire career. Truth with teeth. She lifted her phone and called her editor. "Drop it," she said. "All of it. Front page. Full feature. No legal softening." "You're sure?" Lena stared at the horizon. Richard Blake tried to erase a woman. Twice. He failed. Let the world know. By 8 a.m., the headlines exploded. Breaking: Ruth Blake rescued from illegal detainment. Blake family empire in free fall. Video evidence links Richard Blake to decades of fraud and abuse. Heroic Maid helps expose one of Georgia's biggest scandals. The footage, grainy but unmistakable, showed Ava and Ethan leading Ruth through a decaying hallway, past armed guards, who stepped aside under the threat of exposure.